name is Juan Carlos Arango Sabogal, and I would like to thank VIVA Organizing Committee for this opportunity to present our project, which is part of my postdoctoral program at the Royal Veterinary College, under the supervision of Professor Christine Verheyen, with the collaboration of Dr. Amanda Demestre and Dr. Rebecca Mounsey. Funding for this project was provided by the Racing Foundation and the Horse Race Betting Levy Board. Dr. Mounsey and Dr. Demestre also have additional funding sources. We would like to thank Waterbees and the British Horse Racing Authority for facilitating access to data. We received ethical approval from the RVC's Clinical Research Ethical Review Board. We have no competing interest to declare, and no owner-informed consent is not applicable to this project. To the best of our knowledge, only 2 studies have described training and racing outcomes of thoroughbreds born in the UK. The first study was a retrospective analysis of the foal crop of 1975, and the authors estimated that 62% of horses entered training by 4 years of age, of which 81% raced at least once. The second study didn't follow the entire population, but instead the authors selected a cohort of 1,000 foals and estimated that 52% entered training by 2 years of age, of which 61% raced at least once. It is important to update these figures because they can inform strategies to improve retention and incentivize traceability of thoroughbreds. We wanted to know basically if these figures change over the past decades. One may expect that the proportion of horses entered training and racing might have increased after the advances in understanding of reproductive biology and the advances in veterinary care achieved during the past decades. Therefore, our objective was to describe the proportion of the 2014 and 2015 UK and Ireland foal crops that entered training, raced, and were imported and or exported between birth and the end of their 3rd year of life. We conducted a retrospective cohort study to analyze the entire population, the live progeny born in 2014 and 2015 out of active mares registered in the General Stat Book during the covering seasons 2013 and 2014 in the UK and Ireland. And this implies that we consider horses born outside of the UK and Ireland, but whose mares were covered in the UK and Ireland. We followed these horses until the end of their 3rd year of life, which corresponds to the years 2017 or 2018. And we received 3 databases that we have to merge into a single one to conduct the analysis. The first one was the return of mares, covering seasons 2013 and 14. The second one was the sales and training with information about the last import and export transactions and whether the horses entered training between 2014 and 2018. The last database summarized race performance of these horses between 2016 and 2018 if they raced in the UK, in Ireland, or abroad. To estimate the live foal progeny, we conducted a logistic regression, having live foal as the outcome, and we adjusted clustering of foals within mares using the robust standard errors. For the remaining estimates, we are going to report percentages and 85% confidence intervals. So I'm going to start by describing the mares. In total, there were more than 25,000 mares active in the General Stat Book in 2013 and 2014, of which a return certificate was submitted in at least one season for about 22,000, which represented more than 33,000 covering certificates over the 2 seasons. Of those mares, about 20,000 mares conceived at least one foal over the 2 seasons, which represented a total of 28,282 live foals, which is 84.9% of the covering certificates received over the 2 seasons. We observed a a similar distribution of the number of foals by sex and by year of birth, meaning that about 40,000 foals were born, live foals were born in each year. If we compare this to the estimate reported in 1975, we can notice an increase of about 40% in the number of foals, live foals produced. Of the live foal progeny, 14 horses were excluded because no information on sales, training, or racing was available. Of the live foal progeny with available information on sales, training, and on racing, 511 horses died before registration. More than 10,000 horses entered training in Great Britain by the end of third year. However, an extra 3,130 horses were known to be in training outside of Great Britain and are racing outside of UK and Ireland. So in total, 13,354 horses entered training by the end of third year, which corresponds to 47% of the live foal crops 2014 and 2015. But how do these figures compare to previous study? As a reminder, in our study, we cut the study period 3 years and we used the entire live foal crop to estimate our percentages. The first study reported 62% of horses entered training by 4 years, but they used as a denominator for this percentage the horse's name and eligible for training. If we increase our time period to 4 years, our estimate would be 61%. But if we use the entire live foal crop of 1975 to adjust the estimate they report, the estimate reported by Jeffcott would drop to 49%. On the other hand, the second study reported that 52% of the horses entered training by 2 years and 55% by 3 years, which seems to be higher than our percentage, but we have to take into account that they conveniently selected a subset of individuals for this study and they didn't use the entire population. Of the horses that entered training, 79% raced in any type of race by the end of third year. But again, how this estimate compared to those previous studies? So Jeffcott reported that 83% of the horses raced by 4 years. If we extend our study period to 4 years, our estimate would be 87. On the other hand, Wilshire reported 61% of the horses racing by 2 years. And if we want to compare to them, if we cut our study period to 2 years, our estimate would be 67, which in any case seems to be higher than previously reported. If we take a look at the import and export transactions during the study period, we can see how dynamic the industry was. And because we receive only information on the last transaction, you have there the numbers of the overall import and export transactions registered. But if we want to see this import and export transactions by year of life, we have on the left the import and the right the export. We can see that the proportion of horses imported as 1 year and 3 year old was higher compared to other ages, and for the export transactions, the proportion of horses was higher for 3-year-old compared to other ages. Overall mortality during the study period was between the estimates reported in those previous studies, between the estimates reported in 82 and 2006. But again, if we want to see this by year of life, we can see that the proportion of dead horses was higher for 3-year-olds compared to other ages. The main limitation of our study is that information on horses that may have entered training abroad but did not race was not available in the dataset. This may have contributed to an underestimation of the proportion of horses entered training that were reported. In conclusion, We're providing up-to-date baseline estimates of the proportion of horses entered training and racing in the UK and Ireland. It is important to highlight that we calculated these estimates using the entire population. Although these figures appear to have improved over the past decades, comparisons must be made with caution given the differences in study design, populations, and methods of the studies we're comparing. Finally, these results can be used to inform and monitor strategies aimed at reducing early losses from the horse racing industry. Thank you very much for your attention, and if you have questions or comments, you can send me an email. Thanks. Bye.